We're going to set up our globe now so that we get the tilt, we get lighting, and we get some of the other effects that we want. I'm going to keep this box here in rendered mode, so I'm going to click on it and do Shift-Z. And then I'm also going to add an outliner, so I have that. And then I'm going to add a little timeline view too as well, so I can work with that in this one. So I'm going to go down to here. I'm going to choose outliner, so I can see all my objects so far. I'm going to pull this down just a little bit and add my timeline in here. Here we go. Okay, so one of the things I want to do is I want to try and get this looking pretty nice. And again, we're just playing around with it. Definitely not perfect, and there's probably lots of little tweaks we could do yet to it. But I'm going to get the globe tilted the way it should. So most of you know that the globe spins on its axis and goes around and around in circles. And what we're looking for is about 23.4 degrees of tilt. And so that's what we're going to do with our model here. So I'm going to go and click on Blender to make it active. I'm going to hold my mouse over the screen. I'm going to hit 5, so go in orthographic, 3, so I look at it from the side. I could do this from any angle, of course, any view, front, reverse, whatever, because the actual angle it's at compared to the sun depends on the season. So I'm going to do R, and I can just start to rotate it this way, except I'm going to rotate all of my things together. Since all my images are all lined up to be along the same axis, I'm going to take my clouds, Earth, and the atmosphere, even though that's just a solid texture really, and I'm going to hit R, start to rotate it. I'm going to type in 23.4, enter, and there I have my axis of rotation, just going off center a little bit. If I were animating this later, I could go to where it says global here and change it to normal, so that if I hit R and Z, hit Z a second time, I can get the axis that it's rotating on, and I can create the rotation right there. I'm going to go ahead and hit X escape there. Also, if I rotate it like one circle, I could apply a linear extrapolation to it, where it's just going to keep rotating constantly for whatever I set. So I got that aligned the way that I want. And now I'd like to add a little bit of light. Before I do that, I'm actually going to set up for a star field here. So a couple things I want to do first is to get my camera set up so I can actually get a nice distance here. So my camera is set to clip at 100 units, and 100 units is pretty good distance in here, but I might go beyond that. So I'm going to go ahead and do 4,000 for my camera clipping. I'm going to, in my viewport, I'm going to scroll down until I find the view section, and I'm going to go ahead and change that clipping to let's do 4,000 as well. Okay. And so those are just some basic setup things for this. I'm going to take the lamp that we have right now, and I'm going to delete it. And that's also part of why we have the odd lighting there. So I'm going to hit delete, get rid of the lamp. Now I have nothing but the Earth there, all in the dark, all alone. And we're going to add a star. And so right now I'm in the center here, Shift S just to make sure, cursor to center, Shift A, and I'm going to add a UV sphere. And then over here I can edit how I want that to look, 32, 16, and 1 for the segments, rings, and size is just kind of the default. I'll go and just leave it at that. I don't need to do anything special with it there. I'm going to move this over though to the side so that when I start to create my material for this, that I'll see it as I work with it. So I'm going to click on the Materials tab. I'm going to go ahead and do New, and we're going to call this Starlight. Okay. I'm going to do Shift A. I'm going to add a shader, and I'm going to choose an emission shader. Put that in. I'm going to do Shift A. I'm going to add a mix shader. So under shader, mix, drop that in. Put it in here, move it a little bit towards that. I can see my emission shader over there. I'm going to open up the navigation menu here. I'm going to go down to let's do 0 so I can see what that looks like. Line that up like that. And I'm going to go down to where it says Lock Camera to View, and then I'm going to hit N again to close that out. And I might want that just a little bit bigger for this would be my frame where everything renders, if I render it and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and hit N again. And I'm going to go down to my, past it, Lock Camera to View, zoom in just a little bit, click Lock, hit N again. Now when I move it, it'll stay pretty much in that range, and that's fine. I can see around it just a little bit that way. Okay, so I have this emission that I'm doing there. I'm going to increase the strength of this a little bit so I start to see a bit of an effect there. These are going to be far in the distance, so they're not going to look that large. That's okay. And I'm going to, my factor, I can balance out how I want that to look. I'll do more with that a little bit later. But I'm going to go ahead and move this object back to the center. So I'm going to do Shift S. Shift S. Oh, still in the in a text box somewhere. There we go. Okay, Shift S. And I'm going to say cursor, selection to cursor, and put it back in there, which is fine. I'm going to do Shift A, and I'm going to add a UV sphere. This will be my star field, so I'm going to rename this. Star field globe. And I'm going to click on my other sphere just for a moment. Call this star to make sure it's clear. And then I'm going to go back to my star field. I'm going to hit, I'm going to go ahead and find my scale in the navigation menu here. I'm going to type in 200 and 200 and 200. And since I'm in orthographic, everything is super large. I'm going to hit perspective, so now I'm inside of this sphere that I just put in there. In my settings on it, I'm going to go to the little box icon, and I'm going to go down to where it says display, and I'm going to choose wire, so I just see the wire effect of that, because I don't need to see the actual sphere. Because we don't need to see the actual sphere, let's actually add a material for it, and let's call this Starfield, and I'm going to say transparent. I'm going to change diffuse here to transparent. And that's all I need to do for that one. I just don't want to see that material at all when I am rendering things. Okay, so now we are going to take that sphere, we're going to go over, we're going to add a particle system, and we want to make this so that everything comes all in on frame 1 and lasts for the duration of our animation. Let's go ahead and just tell it 300 frames, and it's not looking bad there. Let's scroll down until we find, let's turn on no physics. Minimize that. and I don't need the velocity, so I'm minimizing that. Okay, and then under render, we're going to choose object, select in the circle there, I'm going to click on star, and I can start to see little stars popping in the distance there. Let's go ahead and set the size of those stars to 1, a little bit large, and I'm going to increase my random all the way up. So let's actually do like 0.4. And then you can modify that later too as well to get it the size that you want. Basically, I don't want the light to be so bright for these that it actually affects the globe itself. Maybe just a tiny little bit would work for that. Crank it up a bit, and you can see that my globe just got a little bit brighter where I can actually start to see around it some. If I do this a lot brighter, you can see more of that effect. But let's actually do, let's do 30 so I can see it like that. I could also go in I'm going to select on the star field again. And I'm going to scroll down to where it says children. I'm going to select that. And I'm going to say simple. Size is at 0.1, at 1, let's do the children at size, not 2, but 0.5, and then let's also increase the random all the way up. Display, what I'll do is I'm going to say 100, so I can see some things in there. And then let's also add a light source. So I have my globe here. I'm going to go ahead and look at it from the orthographic view. I'm going to do Shift A, and I'm going to go down to lamp, and I'm going to select sun. Right now, by default, the sun lamp points down, and is also not very strong, but I can see it hitting there. If I increase the strength, I can see it lighting the top of the globe, which isn't really what I want. I actually want it to light from the sides. So what I'm going to do is hit R for rotate. I'm rotating on the x-axis. I'm going to hit 90. Being orthographic, that means it stays on the x-axis, which is kind of nice there. I can always just hit X and rotate it that way. That's not looking bad. So that would work, in my opinion, for like what we're trying to do. Still, of course, using the effects there, the particle system for stars and stuff, that's not very realistic, of course. However, it's all created in the system that way. I don't have to worry about anything else, but we could add a star field in back as part of the material. So in my node editor down here, I'm going to switch to the globe icon. And right now this says background. I'm going to do Shift A, and I'm going to add a, I'm going down where it says texture. I'm going to add an environment texture. Connect these, and everything turns purple. Shift A again. I'm going to add input, and I'm going to add a texture coordinate, and just do generated. I don't think I need to do that for this, but I'm going to anyway. I'm going to click open, and I'm going to go to my images. I'm going to give you guys this image to use if you want, but we're looking for this one, ESO 0932A TIFF. This is an image that was generated by the Hubble telescope. And so I'm going to click open, and here I get a nice background for star field there. And I have actually both my star fields here. I have my particle one and that other background. I can turn on and off the particle one by, of course, going to my star field, particles, and I can click on or off the eyeball icon to turn that off or to turn it on. Totally up to you on that, and we'll call that good.